Another quick video on difference between key economic concepts. This time, different types of inflation. Cost push, demand pull. Very, very useful in terms of evaluating in an answer to understand the differences between these two things and how they're caused by different things as well. So again, another important distinction that hopefully I'm just going to go through and explain to you quite quickly here. We're going to start with our short-run macro diagrams. That's the best way to demonstrate these, really. So on the left here, we've got cost push inflation. Now, what does cost push inflation mean? Well, as the name suggests, it's coming from costs. The way we can think about that then is that that's going to be affecting the firms. That's going to be affecting the short-run aggregate supply within the economy. And if we've got costs pushing prices higher, that may be because, for instance, maybe oil has got more expensive or some other general commodity has got more expensive. Maybe there's been a minimum wage introduced. Something like that, but that's affected the costs to all firms. Then what's going to happen is that's going to push short-run aggregate supply up. It's going to increase the cost of production. It's going to shift short-run aggregate supply to the left like this. Now, as we can see, what that does is it moves us to a new equilibrium position. So we move from P1 to P2. So this increase in the price level over here, this is inflation coming from the cost side. So this is cost push inflation. On the other side, we've got demand pull inflation. Now, demand pull inflation is caused by excessive amounts of activity in the economy overheating, in other words. So demand pull inflation is caused, as the name would suggest, by changes in aggregate demand. Now, if we want our price level to rise, which is obviously what we want with inflation, that obviously tells us that what needs to happen here is that AD needs to increase. AD needs to move to the right like this. So we move from AD to AD1. And the result of that is that we again see this increase in inflationary pressure, but this time it's been caused by an increase in aggregate demand. So the difference between cost push and demand pull is where it comes from. Costs affect the costs of businesses in one way or another, and demand comes from increases in aggregate demand. How do we show them on a diagram? Cost push we show by shift left of short-run aggregate supply, and demand pull we show by shift right of aggregate demand. Both of them end up showing an increase in the inflationary pressure by a movement up the price level axis.